Alright, so, I'm gonna say a lot of shit at the beginning of this video. First and foremost, I do not have a card for this. Most channels have, like, a card at the beginning of their YouTube videos where they say, this is under fair use. So I'm saying that right now, Netflix. Because if I find there's a strike on my channel, I'm gonna be really fucking pissed. I am doing this under fair use. I am giving my input here. Next for just, the reason why I'm doing this. I was actually very inspired by, Mini Minute Man's newest video. And I really do see myself as a scientific generalist. And that is just what I do. I don't have a degree, but I'm knowledgeable at the basics of a great many subjects. And that's what I bring to the table. And I realize that I'm not quite using that to the fullest on this channel, because I only really go after young Earth creationism and flat Earth. And I also, as one of Mini Minute Man's many viewers, I am very dismayed at how infrequently he uploads his videos. And this is what I've been waiting for him to do for a long while now. That and the fucking Atlantis episode. So, I'm on my personal account here. On my personal Netflix account and my personal Google account to do this. I'm trusting that nobody is gonna, like, go after my fucking profile picture and dox me, but, you know, here goes nothing. If I can... Why the fuck? There we go.
For those...
I also... I know I paused it right before it even got started. But I also find it really weird that that Netflix has season 1 and then this is like... I don't know, it's like... It's so weird because this isn't season 2. It's named chapter 1. As you can see, it popped up here without me even having to do anything. So you've got season 1 and chapter 1 for, like, no reason whatsoever.
Those who don't know me, I'm Graham Hancock. I've been exploring...
Oh my god, that's so dumb. He really is trying to just be the main character here. That was so dorky, so dumb.
The possibility of a lost civilization in prehistory for more than 30 years.
Yeah, and you've been pretty wrong consistently for 30 years.
Archaeology claims that if there were such a thing as a lost civilization, they would have found it already.
Not just archaeology, but, you know, why not completely ignore every other field of science? Because it's fun, I guess.
Well, I profoundly disagree with that. And now my quest continues. In a part of the world often overlooked by historians of humanity's origins.
The oldest dates that we...
It's funny because the season for some... Or, actually, sorry. I said it was chapter 1, but it's actually called The Americas. So you've got Season 1 and The Americas. And I'd like to point out, because he says that the places he goes to are overlooked about history. And I'd like to point out that's because the people who moved here originally tried their best to erase the history here. Pretty sure everybody's angry about that shit, dude.
We're about 13,200 before present.
Exploring some of the world's most intriguing ancient wonders.
There's numerology, there's mathematics, there's astronomy.
This could be considered lost technology.
No. Oh, God, so many things. To call... It's really misleading to say that, because, yeah, technically it was lost technology, then we rediscovered it, but what conspiracy theorists mean when they say lost technology is not indicative of what the words lost technology actually mean. When conspiracy theorists go out of their way to say lost technology, usually they mean shit like lasers, which, of course, they didn't have fucking lasers. And these people were people. They weren't savage barbarians. They were actual people who had actual thoughts. Of course they looked up to the sky and thought, hey, that's cool. Maybe I should think more about that.
And making new discoveries. Wow.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
I mean, as a kid, I always thought the timeline was off.
I really fucking hope that this music isn't copyrighted. I really fucking do. Because if it's copyrighted, I'm gonna get so many strikes on my channel. Oops.
All with a radical new proposition in mind. Could the key to discovering a lost civilization of the Ice Age lie here, in the Americas?
No. Well, actually, yeah. All of the civilizations that we fucking bulldozed to create our nation. And I don't know if they did that more or less in Canada and Mexico and all the countries in South America, but we fucking Americans definitely did that here, so I'm trying to stop myself from saying we, because my lineage actually came here after all that happened. At least the lineage that I actually acknowledge. Like, the lineage that I can actually, like, track. I'm so fucking jealous that they have, like, millions of dollars to do this shit. Can you imagine if I had the chance to get all of these beautiful cinematics? That would be awesome.
The quest for our origins and the quest for the origins of civilization are fundamental to what it is to being human.
It's a fundamental thing to think about. But actually being in pursuit of it, that's for rich people, dude. That's for people who have the money for that shit.
But I think it's partly human nature. If we're convinced that something doesn't exist, we don't look for it.
Yeah, that's kind of how the human brain works, because it works just barely enough to function.
My search for those origins has led me here.
Starting to see why Mini Minute Man didn't actually, like, go through the entire episodes. Because this shit is long-winded as fuck.
To one of the most striking places in North America, White Sands.
This is a land of austere beauty and strangeness that's been hiding a secret for thousands of years. A secret now unveiled that's forcing a rewrite of the prehistory of the Americas.
You're gonna need a lot of fucking evidence for that, dude.
Until the 1990s, we were taught that deep in the Ice Age, humans migrated from North Asia to Alaska across the Bering Land Bridge. Then, around 13,500 years ago, walked south through an ice-free corridor before spreading across the Americas. A scenario held so firmly for so long that few archaeologists went looking for traces of any earlier human migration.
For a very long time, there's been this conviction that evidence would not be found of a human presence older than 13,500 years ago.
Wait.
Scenario held so firmly for so long that few archaeologists went looking for traces of any earlier human migration.
Okay, that's a really dumb thing to say, because archaeologists don't go around the world looking for shit. Somebody stumbles upon ruins and then they call in the archaeologist to do a dig. That's not how that works. To get angry at archaeologists for not finding new fucking, like, historical places is, it's like getting angry at the actors of a fucking movie for not making a sequel. The actors wouldn't be there in the first place if the director wasn't there.
For a very long time, there's been this conviction that evidence would not be found of a human presence older than 13,500 years ago.
Turns out that idea was
Oh, wait. This
Very long time, there's been this
that few archaeologists went looking for traces of any earlier human migration.
For a very long time, there's been this conviction that evidence would not be found of a human presence.
By who? By who? Because I find it hard to believe that all of the archaeologists and all the other scientists to do with human past, with human history, I find it hard to believe that all of them were in a consensus that we'd literally never find any sort of human artifacts before that point. Human structures, I should say. I think he may be talking about how certain structures redefined how we thought megalithic structures were possible, considering before the advent of agriculture, people still had to go out and like actually forage for their food. So, you know, people didn't think that that megalithic structures were possible before the advent of agriculture, which makes sense, but I don't think everybody was in consensus about that, considering, like, it would still be possible to make a megalithic structure while still having a portion of your population foraging. It's just, it would be a whole lot fucking harder. And as such, we have less of those around the world.
It's older than 13,500 years ago. Turns out that idea was wrong. Very wrong. White Sands National Park's resource manager, David Bustos, began working here in 2005, hoping to share with others his passion.
Resource program manager for what? Did they just list off his fucking title and not explain what he, like, actually does and who he does it for? What the fuck?
For this pristine wilderness and its wildlife. But he soon found himself on the trail of something else,
Did they just...
hoping to share with others his passion. White Sands National Park's resource manager, David Bustos, began...
Oh, okay, sorry, I missed that. I'm having a hard time actually paying attention because of how fucking long-winded this shit is.
That idea was wrong. Very wrong. White Sands National Park's resource manager, David Bustos, began working here in 2005, hoping to share with others his passion for this pristine wilderness and its wildlife. But he soon found himself on the trail of something else. Something that seemed crazy at first.
I think about 2006, I heard a story about footprints
That was the year I was born.
of a Bigfoot. And there was a government trapper that found these amazing prints. He described them being 22 inches across and 8 inches wide. You know, what could that be? It must be a Bigfoot. And I think that a lot of people gave him a hard time. There's no Bigfoot.
What kind of fucking logic is that? Oh yeah, I found big tracks. It must be literally the only creature theorized to have, or the only creature named after having big feet. That's really fucking stupid, bro. There are other creatures that have big feet. What kind of logic is that? Oh yeah, big tracks. It must be Bigfoot. What? What was this dude on? Can I get some? What the fuck?
But I was thinking, I've seen these.
Yeah.
And so we went out, and when we brushed out the footprints, you could see they had incredible claw marks.
Obviously, this was no Bigfoot.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. It wasn't Bigfoot. Bigfoot is a mythical creature. If it exists, I don't even know why I'm entertaining the idea it exists. It doesn't exist.
He did find a big footprint of a giant ground sloth.
That's what they were. They were giant ground sloths.
Giant ground sloth.
They knew the prints must be very old. Giant ground sloths went extinct around 11,500 years ago. Then David and his colleagues found even larger prints nearby from mammoths, also long extinct.
Some of the gait and strike.
Okay? You found footprints that predate most of modern history. Or no, most of human history. Okay? What does that prove for literally anything for a civilization predating human history.
Can be 13 feet long, really incredible. Look a little bit further.
I know that sounded really fucking stupid, but I'm just boiling down his theory, basically.
You'll find the giant camel, American camel. Sometimes you'll see dire wolves.
All these tracks are from megafauna, giant mammals which suddenly vanished at the end of the last ice age.
They didn't suddenly vanish. They went extinct. It took time for them to go extinct. Mammoths didn't suddenly disappear. Humans hunted them to extinction, which definitely took at least decades for humans to do. Most likely hundreds of years.
Many are little more than compacted sand, buried and protected by layers of sediment over thousands of years, until erosion brought them back to the surface. Among these ancient mammoth tracks, David also spotted another intriguing set of prints. And he and his colleagues decided to take a closer look.
If they say fucking human footprints, I already know what I'm gonna use to rebuttal this.
When we brushed out these other footprints, we've seen really nice clear toe impressions in the heel.
Human footprints.
Human footprints.
God fucking damn it. Why do I even do this? If this area was revealed to the surface recently and 11,000 years ago, who's to say it hadn't reached the surface literally, or sorry, not 11,000 years ago, 11,000 BCE. If this area was revealed to the surface back then and now, who's to say it didn't happen literally any time in between those dates? It's a desert area. It shifts. Those footprints could have been laid down there relatively recently in geologic time. Or is it sedimentary rock? Well, even if it is sedimentary rock, like, who's to say this isn't a different fucking layer than those other ones? Because once again, this is a desert. Like, do we have any evidence that, like, these are in the same fucking layer? Well, let's see if he actually says if it is.
Prints at the same age it appeared to be as the...
At the same age it had appeared. There's a very big difference from appearance and fact.
Megafauna. It was really amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to point out, humans existed alongside mammoths. You haven't actually given any cultural evidence of any sort of settlement.
These fossilized human footprints must have been made in the time of the mammoths and the giant sloths.
Not necessarily. You haven't given any evidence for that.
At least 11,500 years ago. And there are
These are just Aren't these just placards showing what numbers?
Thousands of them.
There's something intimate and special about White Sands. It's not tools. It's not a broken femur from a prey animal that's been butchered. It's human footprints. It's us.
You haven't given any evidence of tool like, not tool fossils, but any evidence of tool relics. You haven't given us any evidence of relics in general.
We are seeing the human presence very intimately and very directly in those footprints.
Please get to the actual evidence. This is what? How many minutes into this fucking episode? 7 minutes? And all they've gotten to is there are footprints of megafauna and there are footprints of humans. And they exist near each other. That's all you've got. That's...
But when were they left here exactly? Just how old are these footprints? There's no technology that can date them directly.
Yeah. No shit, Sherlock. Any date that anybody could possibly have used would be faulty, given the fact that it's a fucking desert.
So the National Park Service teamed up with the US Geological Survey to search for more evidence. And they struck gold, finding layer upon layer of animal and human tracks going deep into the past.
Okay.
Buried among them were seeds from an aquatic grass. Seeds that could be carbon dated. And the results were astounding.
We know that the footprints were here for thousands of years, at least from 23,000 years to 21,000 years.
Wow.
And what were those dates? Didn't catch.
Years, at least from 23,000 years to 21,000 years.
Wow.
Is that BCE or is that before today's date? They don't really make that clear, do they? In any of these.
And the results were astounding.
We know that the footprints were here for thousands of years, at least from 23,000 years to 21,000 years.
Wow.
Okay. Been there for thousands of years. And then he listed those numbers, which would imply that he means before today's date. Did he leave that part out? As if to say it was BCE? Because that would work better with his theory? Or, like, because... I guess he means BCE because the megafauna went extinct before the Common Era, I'm pretty sure. So I guess he means 2400 and between 2400 and 2100 BCE. But why the fuck wouldn't they say that if they don't mean that? It really does feel like they intentionally cut that part I don't know what the reason would be. Maybe they just cut it because they thought it was too clunky? I don't know, but they really should have, like, specified that.
The discovery of human footprints at White Sands is a huge step forward in our understanding of the peopling of the Americas.
In what way? You haven't listed any fucking artifacts. All this means is that people walked there at a certain point in time. Doesn't say literally anything about the activities they did there. Doesn't say literally anything of if they had a civilization there. Doesn't say if they were there for hunting or if they were there for traveling. Like, this does not advance our understanding whatsoever. There's no context except people were there.
Looking at absolutely incontrovertible evidence that humans were present in New Mexico, deep in the Ice Age.
Okay. So people were there. Like, yeah, people there is significant, but it's not all we need.
Age, as much as 23,000 years ago.
Which could very well have been before the land bridge, which means we have to reevaluate when humans came over to North America, but it still doesn't tell us what they were actually fucking doing there. Humans existing at that time does nothing for Graham Hancock's fucking, it does nothing for his idea of a globe-spanning civilization. It does nothing for that. Simply humans existing does not say anything about their technology or whether they were globe-spanning. Or whether they were a globe-spanning settlement. Let me make that clear. Humans have been globe-spanning for fucking ages. But them actually having communication across the globe, that's what he is saying they have. All this says is that humans were there for an extended period of time. That's all that means. I want to make that clear. This alone, the footprints alone, do absolutely nothing for Graham Hancock's theory.
It's proof that long before it was possible to spread south into the Americas through that ice-free corridor, humans were already here.
This changes the history of the Americas, and it changes the history of the world. These...
What? Wait a second. No, I'm not letting him get away with that shit.
Before it was possible to spread south into the Americas through that ice-free corridor, humans...
He's explaining the
1,000 years ago.
It's proof that long before it was possible to spread south into the Americas through that ice-free corridor, humans were already here.
Okay, yeah, he's explaining the land bridge.
This changes the history of the Americas, and it changes the history of the world.
Doesn't change the history of the world. It changes the history of the Americas. It changes our it doesn't change the history at all. It changes our understanding of the history of the Americas. It changes our understanding of the history of a little bit of Asia and the Americas.
These are human beings just like us, but human beings concealed behind the veil of time. And our task now is to lift that veil back and re-establish that connection with our ancestors and with the remote past.
footprints hold special meaning and significance for the indigenous communities of this area.
I mean, maybe. I don't really see the significance of that, considering chances are they were nomads. To me, what this looks like to me with the footprints is people moving back and forth from places year by year as as winter falls, This to me looks like humans moving either south or north to get to a warmer or cooler climate. That's all it looks like to me. But I want to remind you all that he has not explained the direction the direction these footprints are in. He has not explained any sort of artifacts from where these footprints are. All he has given for the evidence here is that humans existed between such and such time frame. That's all he has given. And as far as evidence goes, that is fucking abysmal.
Kim Pascual Charlie of the Pueblo of Acoma consulted with the team on this groundbreaking discovery.
Tell me about the relationship of the Acoma to the land. How long have your people been here? Are there myths and traditions about an origin story of your people?
Yes, our origin story started...
Okay, this is going to be wildly useless. Just like how the story of Atlantis is wildly useless. Because this is... If I'm right, and this is 2400 to 2100 BCE, this is 4,000 years, more than 4,000 years, of continuous time of literally just word of mouth, and humans love to embellish stories. So, chances are, the little itty-bitty tiny piece of truth that was there in the origin story, chances are, has long since been diluted and then removed. It's like if you took a glass of water, right, and then half of a glass of water, right? You fill the glass up with more water. Then you dump out half of the water. And then you fill it back up. And then you dump it out again. And then you fill it back up. Always keeping half a glass of water in there. But at the end of the day, how much of the water, after thousands of times of doing that, how much of the water molecules actually in that cup, how many of those are actually the same water molecules that you had at the beginning? Truly, how many? Because at a certain point, most, if not all, the water molecules should have been phased out of that water long ago.
Somewhere in the north area. And through our migration story that has been passed down from generation to generation, we settled here and there, coming down here. And that's where my people stayed. We've been in the Southwest for a very long time.
To Kim and her people,
literally, all that was said there was, we've been here a very long time. In the time that we weren't here, we came from the north. It's literally all that means. once again, it is useful information, but it's not useful information to Graham Hancock's theory.
These prints are far more than archaeological records.
No, they're not. They are archaeological records. That's what they are.
Your ancestors left their footprints. I understand you were involved.
There is literally no evidence that these were this woman's ancestors. You have literally no evidence for that. You have jumped from people existed here at some point to they must be these people's ancestors. There is literally no evidence for that. You have given no evidence for that. The people who were there could be entirely unrelated to the settlement, to the civilization that has settled here since. What the fuck are we doing here, dude? You have given 2 teeny tiny pieces of evidence, and then you have jumped 15 million miles ahead of that evidence without getting anything else. What the fuck are we doing here, dude? What the fuck are we doing?
Involved in finding some of those footprints.
Yes, there's no words to describe it.
You have given this woman hope when there is absolutely no reason for it.
We've come to see where our ancestors...
As far as what is explained in this video, there is absolutely no reason why she should think that these people are her ancestors. Because there's no evidence of that.
once walked this earth. And to place my hands in the little footprints of children. You know, and it gets very emotional.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Graham, but it's just, yeah, there are times that makes you want to cry.
Absolutely.
You know?
But once the footprints are exposed, the same process of erosion that revealed them will slowly start to erase them.
These footprints, which testify to the ancient presence of your people, are also fragile. They could easily be lost.
You know, maybe 50 years from now, the next generation won't be able to see the footprints.
Yeah.
But the stories will continue. Our stories will.
What stories? There is literally no evidence at all of what the story would be. This entire... How long is this? 12 minutes. 12 minutes of this episode. And you've got 2 teeny tiny pieces of evidence and a fucking leap in logic. There's clearly evidence here. The reason why she is so emotional, I would think that she is one of the archaeologists brought over to actually excavate this site. What is the evidence that this motherfucker is not giving? Where is the evidence that this guy is leaving out?
Will continue.
But the barren landscape begs a question. Why would all these humans and animals have come here? Remember, North America was different during the Ice Age. The north half of the continent.
I'm gonna turn what my peak audio is allowed to be down. I'll review this afterwards to see if my voice is too quiet. But I think I may be breaking people's eardrums.
And was smothered by ice. And this part of New Mexico was very different.
At first glance, this vast open desert with patches of brush and wind-sculpted dunes seems pitiless and otherworldly.
But if we wind the clock back to the height of the Ice Age, conditions here were very different. The Tularosa Basin held a giant body of fresh water, known as Lake Otero, surrounded by vegetation. Ancient mammoths, ground sloths, and camels came to this watering hole to feast on the grasses and trees. And as we now know, humans followed them.
Okay. Just a third piece of teeny tiny little bit of evidence. Still, all of them individually and all of them together mean absolutely the fuck nothing for his theory.
Establishing the age of the footprints was a complex scientific problem. David and a team of experts spent more than a decade building the evidence. But when, in 2021, they published their findings in the journal Science, not all reactions were favorable.
You know, I think with anything that's so unique and unusual, it takes a lot of science to be able to support it.
I'm sorry, but if this area was full of lush greenery and a fucking lake, how is it footprints from the Ice Age?
The carbon dating of the seeds was challenged, but the team confirmed their results using other samples of pollen and sediment, quieting their critics.
Is there still controversy around the 23,000-year-old dates?
I think until you have a time machine, there always will be. But beyond all these dates also, if you look, you still see a mammoth footprint a meter and a half above human footprints, and there's more mammoth prints below. So
yeah.
Megafauna and people have been on this horizon for thousands of years together.
The White Sands discovery.
Once again, humans and megafauna did live together. I want to reiterate that, because they have answered literally the first question I had, but they have done literally nothing for all of the questions I've had since. They proved that humans and megafauna lived at the same time at this site. That's all they've proved. They've proved that humans and megafauna existed between this time frame. They've proved the local people have lore of coming from the north. What was the other one? Oh, right. At that time that the footprints were made, it was lush greenery and a lake. Those are all of the things that they've proved. That's all that they've proved. And if they go by this fucking frequency of proving things, they will have proved 9 tiny pieces of information in this entire video and drawn 3 conclusions between them. That doesn't sound very good for a fucking 40-minute long episode, does it?
Helps to solve one of the most perplexing mysteries of prehistory: the sudden extinction of America's Ice Age megafauna.
talking?
Between 13,000 and 11,000 years ago.
The suggestion...
I'm sorry. Did you call a 200-year-long period sudden? Did that really just fucking happen? As far as extinctions go, I would think that that's kind of par for the course. Wouldn't you? It's an extinction. It takes time. Sudden would be if it happened in like a couple of decades. That would be sudden. But 200 years is not a brief amount of time. A lot of hunting can happen in 200 years. And one mammoth can feed a lot of people. Imagine if those populations grew, and then that hunting sped up exponentially. You can very easily see how mammoths could be hunted to extinction in such a short amount of time, or in such a long amount of time. God, that's a really bad slip. But in such a span, 200 years, given that little piece of information, makes a lot of sense.
Of archaeology was that human beings hunted down all the megafauna and butchered them. I don't know of any hunter-gatherer group that would willingly exterminate its food supply.
Did you think they had a fucking choice? If they kept expanding, eventually the only thing that would be able to feed all of them was hunting very, very big game. Eventually they'd have to exterminate the entire population of megafauna. Then they'd have to move to a different area. Then they'd continue exterminating until they'd moved around the fucking continent and exterminated everything. Then there was probably a mass death of humans, too.
So the notion that humans were responsible for the extinction of the megafauna has...
But, to be fair, he just said 1100 to 1300 BCE. Isn't that around the time agriculture happened? So, they ended up making the megafauna go extinct, and then they picked up their growing food needs with agriculture, which makes a lot of sense.
It always seemed to me quite bizarre.
The tracks here prove that humans and those animals overlapped for at least 10,000 years before their extinction.
I think a much better...
Yeah, they overlapped because they were hunting them, you fuckwit.
...explanation for the extinction of the Ice Age megafauna is the global cataclysm that took place round about 12,800, 12,900 years ago, known as the Younger Dryas. It's the global...
Sorry.
It's before their...
Like I said, I'm having a lot of trouble actually paying attention to this shit without spacing out.
Extinction.
I think a much better explanation for the extinction of the Ice Age megafauna is the global cataclysm that took place round about 12,800, 12,000.
I'd like to remind you all that he has not explained a global cataclysm at all with any sort of evidence.
900 years ago, known as the Younger Dryas. was a sudden plunge in global temperatures, a sudden rise in sea levels, and the world very rapidly became an extremely difficult place to live. It's a time we call the Ancient Apocalypse. North America was hardest hit, which could explain both the extinction of its megafauna and also the big gaps in human history here.
The changes like storms and fires are very easily explained because he has explained, I may be wrong here, feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but if this was right after or partially during the glacial maximum, I want to remind you all that under really cold temperatures, fires happen. It's like the whole issue with Canada and California igniting during winters. We know this to happen. Also, storms? Of course storms happen. They happen frequently in the United States. The United States are no stranger to hurricanes. In fact, global, climate change is a big reason for storms to happen. And if the climate was going from icy to warm, if the climate was going from icy to warm, I'd think that a lot of fucking hurricanes would happen.
We are going to have to completely change the story of the peopling of the Americas in the light of this new evidence.
No. You don't have to completely change it. We already know a great, shitload. That's not a scientific term, but it's what I'm going with. We already have a shitload of evidence for what happened after humans came over here. Over the land bridge, specifically. We already have shit ton of evidence of what happened after the land bridge, basically. All we'd really have to tweak is what we know about before that.
Archaeologists are opening their eyes and their minds to the possibility of a much older human presence.
We're just touching the tip of the surface of what's to be learned. I think throughout the Southwest, as people look, they're going to find sites that are just as old as White Sands
so
also.
It's like you've opened a door on the past, which no...
Well, yeah, if humans existed there, of course they'd exist all over the fucking continent. Yeah, that would make sense. But I'd like to reiterate that there have been no artifacts given in this video. There have been no artifacts explained in this video. And I have a feeling that the reason for that is because all of the artifacts that are actually in there are artifacts that portray a hunter-gatherer rather than a settled civilization.
Nobody stepped through before.
Yeah.
I want to make this clear. He's given no evidence of hunting goods. He has given no evidence of structures. He has given no evidence of literally anything for habitation of this area except for people existed there.
Paradigm shifts don't happen instantly. It's the accumulation of evidence that finally discredits an old paradigm and allows eyes to open to new possibilities. That's what we're witnessing in the Americas now.
Basically, he's saying science was wrong, and we're open to new ideas. Yeah, that's how science works. But you actually have to have evidence for these new ideas.
What's been discovered here at White Sands is part of a much bigger story, a global story.
that I've been investigating for more than 30 years. If we want to clear the fog of amnesia that surrounds our remote past, we need to look much deeper and much further back than we've ever done before. Right here in the Americas, where the timeline of prehistory keeps on.
I gotta say, him just standing in just an open plain and just talking and shaking is just really fucking stupid. Like, he does his absolute best to look cool in this show, and it's really dumb.
On receding with every new discovery.
New discoveries that are not just being followed by archaeologists.
So, Keanu.
Graham?
Let's talk about the past.
Okay.
Why does the past...
Why the fuck is Keanu Reeves here? What the fuck? What does he have to do with literally any of this? Why? What the fuck is the point? I'm gonna try and reach a halfway mark and then I'm gonna end the video because this is going on for quite a while.
Past matter to you?
Well, you know, I remember as a young child just being inquisitive, and as I have grown up, it comes to the question of a fundamental sense of who are we?
Yeah, and what's driven me on this quest of my own for more than 30 years is to try to get back to some sort of source.
Source of what?
The source of who we are.
And the timeline.
Timeline's all wrong.
Which is a really... Fuck that last comment. But trying to figure out our origins as a species is actually a really noble pursuit. What isn't noble is giving your own theory and then bullshitting your way through proving it. That's not noble. That's misinformation. And misinformation can kiss my ass.
That's why those...
I was trying my best not to make that cheesy, but I guess it really was cheesy. I don't like people not being truthful. I just don't like it. I find people lying habitually and lying to get through their entire career incredibly sleazy. And that's part of why I do this. And when those lies are detrimental, like is so often the case in pseudoscience, it just gives me more of a reason to combat it, you know?
Those footprints in white sands were so significant to me. And my feeling is that 23,000 years is just the beginning. We're going to go back much further than that.
Yeah, I have that feeling too.
And we are just at the edge of
Didn't that feel really fucking forced? Am I the only one who thought that felt really forced?
rediscovering so much of our lost past. And in a way, America...
God, is he fucking jaundiced? What the fuck? He doesn't look like that on this screen. Why does he fucking look orange on this one? Why is it recording at, like, higher... Why is it recording with, like, so much more saturation? Oh god, Keanu looks orange too! What the fuck? That's not how the show looks. I don't know what the fuck is up with that.
Is the place where that story is unfolding.
Well, that's an exciting idea. I think you're on a quest, Graham, to teach and to bring understanding, perhaps.
Well, the issue about the Americas is that there is so much of our past that we've forgotten, and my role, such as it is, has been to try to...
It's just now occurring to me that he has Keanu here because Keanu is, like, widely considered badass, and he's and they're having Keanu compliment him to try and make him look badass. Is there just a clause in the contract to make Graham Hancock look cool? Like, what the fuck is going on here?
recover some of that lost memory.
When I think of the past like that, it sounds exciting.
Absolutely. For me, the past is all about mystery. It's not about what we do know. It's about what we don't know. The huge areas that have not...
Yeah, a talk with two men in the woods. I'm sorry, that came to mind and it was too funny not to fucking say.
been explored or investigated, the possibilities that haven't been explored.
Yeah.
We need to start looking specifically for evidence in places where we might not have looked before. During the Ice Age.
Alright, I think this is a good place to leave it off for next time. At the end of Graham Hancock's big man chat with Keanu Reeves. Oh man. If you keep coming back, subscribe. If it's your first time, I don't give a shit.